Emily walked alone on the narrow, cracked pavement, her small feet barely making a sound as she stepped carefully along the edge of the road. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and purple. The air smelled like damp earth and fallen leaves, a reminder that autumn was creeping in. She clutched the straps of her backpack tighter, shifting its weight on her shoulders. It was filled with books, a lunchbox, and a small stuffed rabbit, a gift from her grandmother earlier that day. She wasn't scared. Not really. She had walked this road before, many times, but never this late in the evening. The houses were far apart here, separated by wide stretches of trees that cast long shadows. The wind rustled the branches, making them sway like whispering figures in the growing darkness. She quickened her pace, not wanting to be caught outside when night finally settled over the town. Then she heard it. A deep, distant rumble. It was faint at first, blending with the wind, but it grew louder, steadier. Emily stopped walking. Her heart pounded as she turned her head toward the bend in the road behind her. The sound wasn't just growing louder, it was coming closer. She didn't need to see them to know what it was. Motorcycles. A sinking feeling formed in her stomach. She wasn't supposed to be out here alone this late, and she certainly wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the local biker gang. Everyone in town knew about them. Rough men in leather jackets, always riding in packs, their motorcycles growling through the streets like wild animals. Emily had never spoken to them, never even been close to them, but she had heard stories. Whispers from the adults when they fought kids weren't listening. Stories of men who did what they wanted, took what they wanted, and didn't care about the rules. The first motorcycle rounded the bend, its headlight cutting through the dim light. Then another, and another. Emily's breath caught in her throat. There were at least 6 of them, riding in a staggered formation, their engines rumbling like thunder against the silence of the empty road. She didn't move. Maybe they wouldn't notice her. Maybe they would just keep going. But they didn't. As they drew closer, the lead rider, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark sunglasses despite the fading light, raised his hand. The others slowed down, their engines growling in protest before settling into a low idle. Emily felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. The leader smirked, pulling his sunglasses down just enough to look at her. His face was sharp, lined with stubble, and there was something in his expression that made her want to run. But her feet wouldn't move. Well, he drawled, his voice deep and rough. What do we have here? His words sent a chill down her spine. The other bikers chuckled, their voices low and amused, as they circled their motorcycles around her, boxing her in. Emily's fingers tightened around the straps of her backpack. Then, from the depths of the forest, a low, menacing growl sliced through the air. The laughter stopped. The air grew heavy. Something was watching, something powerful, and it was coming. The growl sent a shiver down Emily's spine. It was deep, almost unnatural, vibrating through the air like a warning. The bikers heard it too. Their laughter died, replaced by tense silence. The leader, the man with dark sunglasses, turned his head slightly toward the trees. His smirk faltered for just a second before returning. He shook his head and scoffed. Just an animal, he muttered under his breath, but Emily could see the way his fingers tensed over his handlebars. The other bikers weren't so confident. One of them, a man with a red bandana and a jagged scar across his chin, glanced at the forest uneasily. "That ain't no regular dog," he said. "Sounds big." The leader rolled his shoulders and turned his attention back to Emily. He leaned forward slightly, his smirk returning. "You lost, kid?" he asked, his tone playful but laced with something darker. Emily didn't answer. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. She wasn't sure what was more terrifying, the gang surrounding her or whatever had growled from the forest. One of the bikers, a younger man with a tattoo running up his arm, tilted his head. "What's in the bag, huh?" he asked, nodding toward her backpack. "Candy? A phone." Emily took a small step back, gripping the straps tighter. The bikers chuckled, sensing her fear. Then the growl came again. This time, it was closer. The trees rustled as something moved in the underbrush. A shape, a massive, hulking figure, shifted in the darkness. The leader's smirk disappeared completely now. He turned fully toward the forest, his shoulders stiff. "All right, who's messing around?" he said, trying to sound in control, but there was an edge to his voice. A heavy silence fell over the road. Then, a single paw stepped onto the pavement. It was enormous. The footfalls were slow, deliberate. From the shadows, a creature emerged, bigger than any wolf Emily had ever seen. Its fur was silver-streaked with black, glistening under the dimming sunlight. Its eyes were golden, glowing like embers in the dark. It moved with an eerie grace, its muscles rippling beneath its thick coat. The bikers froze. Emily barely breathed. The wolf didn't snarl, didn't bark. It simply stood there, staring at them with an intelligence that didn't belong to any ordinary animal. It was as if it understood exactly what was happening. Scarchin took a step back, his voice barely above a whisper. "That ain't normal." The leader, still trying to keep his cool, tightened his grip on the throttle of his motorcycle. "It's just a big dog," he snapped. "Relax." But the others weren't so sure. One of them, bald, covered in tattoos, reached into his leather jacket. The wolf moved instantly. It wasn't just fast, it was unreal. One moment it was standing at the edge of the forest. The next it was inches closer, its massive frame tensed like a coiled spring. Tattooed biker swore under his breath, yanking his hand away from his jacket. The message was clear. Don't try it. Emily could barely process what was happening. This wasn't just some wild animal wandering onto the road. It had chosen to come here, chosen to stand between her and the bikers. And it wasn't afraid. The golden eyes locked onto the leader now, unblinking. The wolf didn't move, didn't growl. It just watched. A long, heavy silence stretched across the road. Then slowly, the leader exhaled. "Let's get out of here," he said, his voice lower now. He didn't look at Emily again, just revved his engine. The others hesitated for half a second before doing the same. The wolf didn't move until the motorcycles roared to life and the bikers turned away, speeding off into the night. Only when the last taillight disappeared did the golden eyes flicker toward Emily. For the first time, she wasn't scared. She was in awe. Emily stood frozen, her small fingers still clutching the straps of her backpack. The roar of the motorcycles faded into the distance, swallowed by the night. But her eyes remained fixed on the massive wolf standing in the middle of the road. The wind rustled through the trees, making the leaves whisper like unseen voices. The wolf didn't move, didn't make a sound. It simply stood there, its golden eyes glowing softly in the dim light. It was watching her, studying her. Emily's breath came out in short, uneven bursts. She had seen wolves in picture books, on TV, but nothing like this. This creature was larger than any she had imagined, its fur thick and silver with streaks of deep black. Its paws were enormous, its muscles coiled with silent power. And yet, despite its intimidating size, she didn't feel afraid. Slowly, cautiously, she took a step back. The wolf's ears flicked slightly, but it didn't move. Another step. Still, the wolf remained still, like a statue carved from shadow and moonlight. Emily swallowed hard. Maybe if she moved slowly, she could slip away. Maybe it would just disappear back into the forest the same way it had come. Then, a sound cut through the silence. An engine. Her stomach clenched. The bikers were coming back. Panic shot through her like ice. Had they changed their minds? Were they angry? She spun around toward the bend in the road, her heart pounding against her ribs. A single headlight appeared in the distance, slicing through the darkness. The rumbling engine grew louder, closer. Emily turned back to the wolf, expecting it to be gone, expecting it to have vanished back into the trees. But it hadn't moved. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, its golden eyes locked on the approaching motorcycle. The headlight grew brighter. A single figure rode toward them, separate from the rest of the gang. Emily couldn't tell who it was, but the sight of that roaring machine made her stomach twist with fear. Then, without warning, the wolf moved. It was so fast that Emily barely saw it happen. 1 second, it was standing in the road. The next, it had melted into the trees, swallowed by the shadows. Emily's breath hitched. It was gone. She turned back toward the motorcycle, her heart hammering in her chest. The rider slowed down, pulling to a stop just a few feet away. The engine idled, its low growl filling the night air. The rider lifted his helmet slightly, just enough for her to see his face. It was the leader, the man with the dark sunglasses. Even in the dim light, she could see the way his jaw clenched, the way his fingers gripped the handlebars tighter than before. His smirk was gone. In its place was something else, something like uncertainty. Emily swallowed hard, every muscle in her body tense. The man studied her for a long moment, his eyes flicking toward the trees where the wolf had disappeared. He looked uneasy. Then, without a word, he revved his engine, spun his bike around, and rode off into the night. Emily stood there frozen. The wolf was gone. The bikers were gone. But something told her this wasn't over. Not yet. Emily's legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stand still. The rumble of the motorcycle faded into the distance, swallowed by the night. The leader was gone. The other bikers were gone. But she wasn't alone. Somewhere in the shadows of the trees, the wolf was still there, watching. Emily licked her dry lips, turning her head slowly toward the dense forest. The leaves rustled again, though there was no wind this time. A feeling settled over her, something deep in her bones, something ancient, something she couldn't explain. She wasn't afraid, but she wasn't sure if that was a good thing. Then the wolf stepped out. It moved silently, its massive paws making no sound against the cracked pavement. In the dim light, its silver-black fur shimmered like liquid metal. Its golden eyes locked onto hers, unblinking, unreadable. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, the wolf took a step closer. Emily tensed, but didn't back away. The air between them felt charged, thick with something she didn't understand. The wolf wasn't just looking at her. It was studying her, as if it were searching for something. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to work. You're not going to hurt me, are you?" The wolf didn't answer, of course, but its gaze softened just slightly. Then, another sound broke the silence. A snap like a branch breaking underfoot. Emily's breath caught. That hadn't come from the wolf. It had come from behind her. She spun around, her heart hammering. A figure emerged from the trees. At first, she thought it was another biker, but as the shadow stepped into the faint moonlight, she saw it was someone different. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a long, dark coat. His face was mostly hidden under the hood, but she could see just enough to make out sharp features and piercing eyes. Emily stumbled back, fear surging through her veins. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't answer right away. His gaze flicked between her and the wolf, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. Emily swallowed hard. I was just going home." The man tilted his head slightly, as if listening for something in the distance. His eyes darkened. "Not safe," he murmured. "They might come back." Emily shuddered. He meant the bikers. Then, to her shock, the wolf let out a low, rumbling growl, not at her, but at the man. The stranger barely reacted. He simply glanced at the massive creature, his expression unreadable. "You should go," he said to Emily, his voice calm but firm. "Now." Emily hesitated, glancing at the wolf. It still stood between her and the man, its golden eyes locked onto him like a silent warning. Something wasn't right. She didn't know how, but she could feel it. The wolf wasn't just protecting her from the bikers. It was protecting her from him. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. The man stood motionless, his hood casting a shadow over his face. The only movement was the slow rise and fall of his chest and the flicker of his piercing eyes as he studied her. The wolf remained between them, unmoving, its muscles taut like a coiled spring. Its deep, rumbling growl never wavered. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Emily felt trapped between two forces she didn't understand. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. She wanted to speak, but her throat felt tight. Finally, the man exhaled. It was a long, slow sound, almost like disappointment. "I see," he murmured, his gaze shifting slightly, not at Emily, but at the wolf. The growl deepened. The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering something. Then, to Emily's shock, he took a step back. "I should have known," he said, almost to himself. "You're still watching over them." Emily had no idea what he meant, but the wolf's reaction was instant. It lowered its head just slightly, a silent but undeniable warning. The man's lips curled in a faint, humorless smile. "Understood," he said, his voice calm. "For now." Then, without another word, he turned and walked back into the shadows. Emily barely dared to breathe until the sound of his footsteps faded. Only then did the wolf relax. Its growl faded into silence, and it stood there, still and watchful, as if making sure the man was truly gone. Emily swallowed hard, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Who was that man? And why did the wolf seem to know him? She hesitated before speaking, her voice shaky. Was he dangerous? The wolf said nothing, of course, but it looked at her and somehow she understood. Yes. A chill ran through her. The wolf took a slow step toward her now, its golden eyes softer than before. It didn't seem threatening, just expectant. Emily hesitated. Then, cautiously, she reached out her hand. The wolf didn't pull away. It allowed her fingers to brush against its thick fur. Warm, solid, real. Somehow she knew this wolf wasn't just an animal. It was something more. And for some reason, it had chosen to protect her. The distant sound of another engine rumbled in the night, far off but enough to jolt her back to reality. She had to get home. The wolf took a step back, watching her as she turned toward the road. She walked a few steps, stopped, looked back. It was still there. Silent, watching, guarding. And somehow, Emily knew. This wasn't the last time she would see it. Emily walked quickly, her small feet barely making a sound against the cracked pavement. Her home wasn't far now, just past the old bridge and down the winding road. The night was still, too still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She glanced back. The wolf was gone. A strange emptiness settled in her chest. For some reason, knowing it was there had made her feel safe. Now she felt exposed, like a single flickering candle in an endless darkness. She forced herself to keep moving. Almost home. Just a little farther. Then the cold feeling returned. That presence. Emily didn't hear footsteps. Didn't see anything, but she felt it, like unseen eyes pressing against her back. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she turned her head. A shadow stood at the edge of the trees. The hooded man. Emily's pulse jumped. He hadn't left. He had just waited. For her. She took a step back, then another. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her legs locked in place. The man didn't move. He simply stood there, half hidden in the trees, watching. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "He can't protect you forever." The words sent a chill straight to her bones. Emily wanted to yell, to demand answers, but her voice wouldn't come. The man's gaze flickered past her, towards something behind her. A deep growl rumbled through the air. Emily spun around. The wolf was back. Its golden eyes burned like embers, its fur bristling in the moonlight. It had appeared from nowhere, silent as a ghost. The moment stretched, heavy with tension. Then, the man let out a soft chuckle. "I see. You're serious about this." The wolf took a step forward, its body tense, ready. A low, warning growl rumbled from its throat. The man sighed. Very well. Then, just as silently as he had come, he melted into the shadows, vanishing between the trees. Emily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The wolf's growl faded, but it didn't relax. It stood perfectly still, watching the darkness where the man had disappeared. Emily turned to it, her voice shaky. "Who? What was that?" The wolf said nothing. But Emily could feel the answer hanging in the air. Not a man. Not anymore. She swallowed hard. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily's legs trembled, but she forced herself to stand tall. The hooded man had disappeared, but his words clung to her like a shadow. He can't protect you forever. What did that mean? And who was he talking about? The wolf? She turned back toward the massive creature. It still stood between her and the forest, golden eyes locked on the spot where the man had vanished. Its ears twitched, its muscles remained taut, ready for anything. Emily swallowed hard. She had to know. Who was that? She whispered. The wolf didn't answer, of course, but it turned its gaze toward her, holding her stare for just a moment. Then it began to move. Not away, but forward. Emily's breath caught as the wolf passed her, stepping onto the road, its huge paws barely making a sound. Then it stopped and turned its head ever so slightly. It was waiting for her. Emily hesitated. Every instinct told her to go home, to run inside and pretend none of this had happened. But deep down she knew this wasn't something she could ignore. She took a shaky step forward. The wolf nodded, an actual nod, before turning and leading her forward. Emily's heart pounded as she followed it down the road, past the old bridge, and toward the dense woods that bordered her town. She had never gone this far alone, especially not at night, but with the wolf beside her, she felt safer than she should have. Minutes passed in silence, the only sound their footsteps against the dirt path. The deeper they went, the more the trees closed in, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. Moonlight barely reached through the thick canopy above. Then the wolf stopped. Emily followed its gaze. Ahead of them, hidden between two ancient trees, stood something strange. A stone marker. It was covered in moss, cracked with age, yet the carvings on its surface were still clear. Symbols Emily didn't recognize, swirling patterns that seemed almost alive in the dim light. Emily took a step closer. What is this? A gust of wind whispered through the trees. The wolf sat beside her, its gaze steady, unblinking. And then, Emily saw it. A name. Etched into the stone, half covered in moss, was a single name. One she knew. Her last name. Her breath caught. She staggered back, her mind spinning. Why? Why is my name here? She whispered. The wolf didn't move, but somehow she knew. This wasn't just some old stone. This was a grave, and whoever was buried here was connected to her. The wind howled through the trees, and for the first time that night, true fear crept into Emily's heart. Because this wasn't just about some bikers. This wasn't just about a wolf. This was about her, and the secrets buried in the dark. Emily's breath came in short gasps as she stared at the moss-covered grave. Her last name was carved into the stone. Why? The wolf sat beside her, silent, watching. Its golden eyes reflected the moonlight, waiting for her to understand. Her fingers trembled as she reached forward, brushing away the moss that had grown over the letters. Beneath it, more words were revealed. Sarah Whitmore, 1887-1902. Emily's stomach twisted. A child. Her fingers tightened against the stone as realization settled in. This girl had died over 100 years ago, at her age. She turned to the wolf, her voice barely above a whisper. Who was she? The wolf didn't move, but the answer pressed against her, as if the night itself was speaking. Family. A chill ran down her spine. The thought made no sense, but at the same time, she knew it was true. This girl, Sarah Whitmore, had been part of her bloodline, and something terrible had happened to her. Emily's heart pounded as she thought back to the hooded man's words. He can't protect you forever. She shuddered. He wasn't talking about the wolf. He was talking about her. A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, and a new sound rose in the distance. Engines. The bikers were coming back. Emily spun around, panic setting in. The wolf was already on its feet, ears perked, muscles tensed. It had known this would happen. The engines grew louder, closer. Emily felt frozen. What did they want? Why were they after her? The wolf let out a deep, rumbling growl, stepping in front of her. But this time, Emily understood something she hadn't before. It wasn't just protecting her. It was guarding this place. The bikers weren't just after her. They were after whatever secret had been buried here for over a century. Headlights appeared through the trees. The first motorcycle skidded to a stop just feet away from them. The others followed, circling like predators. The leader, the man with the dark sunglasses, stepped forward, pulling off his helmet. His expression wasn't cocky anymore. It was dead serious. "You shouldn't have come here, kid," he said. Emily's fists clenched. "Why? What is this place?" The man's jaw tightened. He glanced at the wolf, then back at her. "A graveyard," he said quietly. "For people like you." Emily's breath caught. "Like me?" The man sighed. "You don't know you." A sick feeling twisted in her gut. "Know what?" The man took a step closer, lowering his voice. "This isn't the first time this has happened," he said. "Every few generations, a girl in your family starts seeing him." He nodded toward the wolf. "And when that happens, people like us show up to stop it." Emily's mind raced. "Stop what?" The man hesitated. Then, in a voice like cold steel, he said, "Before she disappears, just like the others." Emily's blood turned to ice. The wolf let out a thunderous growl. The bikers reached for something hidden in their jackets. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. And then the wolf attacked.